Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Creating Tailwinds Podcast by Flight Path Financial with your hosts, John Urbick and Jared Adams. Join us today as we discuss the power of infinite banking. And here we go.
Greetings, John. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Jared, how are you today?
Doing fantastic. Yourself?
Couldn't be better. Couldn't be better.
Love to hear that. Here we are, cranking away episode 11, getting all fancy, breaking out the video.
Watch out now. I know. I had to dress up for this.
What's been new in your world? How you been?
Oh, gosh, it's been good. Let's see. Easter. We went up to Boston and celebrated Easter up there with Anthony, our son, and his family, and half the family converged up there. And it was, by the way, the 250th anniversary of Lexington and Concord, and we went to the reenactment, and that was pretty incredible.
Wow, that's cool.
A lot of fun.
Super cool.
Yeah. Shot heard around the world.
That's crazy. And you got a long weekend or a full week up there with the kiddos?
Oh, no, it was truncated, but I think we went up there on a Friday, and we came back on Monday.
Sure.
And the Boston Marathon was running on Monday, so yeah, it was going to be crazy getting out of there on Tuesday. We said we got to beat feet. Well, they're literally beating feet on the
I get that.
on the run. Yeah,
I get that.
How about
crazy.
you? What you been doing?
I have not had any time to breathe because any time not spent at work or learning and diving into the IBC practitioner program, which I'm almost done with, by the way.
You're the man.
If not diving in for education or work, I have been at the softball fields with my middle one. It's been awesome to be able to coach, her team and be a part of what that looks like. But that's a commitment. I think we're practicing 2 or 3 times a week and then games 2 or 3 times a week. It's like it's one night off where you're not at the ball fields. I love it. I absolutely love it. That's how I grew up in minor league, little league, Babe Ruth. As a youth, I grew up playing ball all the time. So I'm glad that they get to see that. But man,
that's awesome stuff.
Now
sure. Good for you. I can't think of a better way to spend your time.
Yeah,
and
we're very fortunate.
With your kids when they're young. That's awesome. I'm gonna go quickly.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So, I guess breaking away from, our last 10 podcasts, we went through Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, spent, I thought, a real good deal of time breaking down some different concepts and really trying to lay the foundation, right? Get the basics. And so now we kind of get to break out into the various topics that, we either see relevant or find fit or, the various different ways that we get to use this audience, right? Like, how do we get to use this to be able to talk about some of the things that are most pertinent to both IBC and, the Creating Tailwinds podcast? How do we come up with those ideas?
Well, as you know, I spent quite a few years in the family business, which is in financial planning, a lot in the markets as a Series 7 63 guy, slinging stocks and bonds and derivatives and everything else that went with it. And I got to see a lot of behind the scenes. And one of the things that's always been a craw on my side over the years is the whole 401k thing.
Yep.
And everybody's obsession with that this is the way to retirement. And you and I decided we were just going to show people that, look, there are other ways of doing this. Yep. And is the 401k the great savior for our retirements that so many people thought it was going to be? It was just a line insertion in the tax code law. Gosh, 1978, I think it started, and 80 is when it became implemented with ERISA. And the returns just have not been that fabulous for too many people.
Sure. And
if you look at there's of course a broad spectrum of people with modest means and what they haven't saved, and then there's pilots. We make a good buck. We say, hey, I'm gonna just firewall this thing and put all this money into this thing. Is that the best place to put your money? You're a young guy, you're 35, 40 years old, and you're going to lock your money up for 20, 30 years.
Sure.
What does that look like?
I know we mentioned at one point in previous podcast how, the government created the issue and then created the solution. And it's like, can we at least look at that through a little bit of a skeptical lens in terms of where that came from and how that showed up? Because it's interesting. And I just in terms of how, the defined benefit plans, more of your like pension plans, as those fell off over the last couple of decades. And then through the fall of that, you get the rise of the 401k as well, which, having some friends whose parents have seen some airline industry downs over the last 2 or 3 decades,
Yeah.
knowing that that money's all in your name, there's something to be said for that. Yet, I think we can uncover some of the fallacies in terms of how good that this system really can be, or maybe some other options in terms of where that could go.
Well, just so people know, I mean, the whole migration from defined benefit programs to defined contributions was nothing more than the entire paradigm shift of responsibility to make sure that the money was there. Defined benefit plans gave you something for the rest of your life when you were done working.
Yep,
Defined contribution plans, you're on your own.
that's right.
Doesn't matter. There was an interesting study, and I know you're aware of it,
Yep,
but Secrets of the 401k Industry by Edward Seidel, and it was on the defined benefit or contribution plan,
yep,
and the stuff that he unearthed in here, and he was a pretty renowned guy, and he was testified in front of Congress, and what he found, and essentially you've got all these people, they're working 40 to 60 hours a week. When do they have the opportunity to become experts in finance? They don't. And so there's a tremendous disadvantage. You've got people who are very unskilled in this stuff, and certainly some who are skilled and who are capable of managing their own affairs. But you have a huge number of people going, okay, what am I going to do with this money? Right? How much should I put in? And then you get to the whole discussion. And Jared, you and I have put together a bit of a PowerPoint we're going to show people in a moment
sure. Yeah, yeah.
on how all this stuff flows.
Yep.
But, I looked into this. This is the largest fiduciary, not the fiduciary. Yeah, the fiduciary would be Fidelity, largest 401k holder in the country. 5 pages. These are fees. Just 5 pages of nothing but fees that
But I
people
thought we
pay.
only paid fees on mutual funds. I thought there was only fees there. There's other fees?
No. There, go
I
read the
know.
fine print. There are
I
so
know.
many fees. And you know what else? What other little gem I found in Market Media, a reporting agency? Check that out. You see that? It
Looks like
says
Fidelity
Fidelity
made
Investments reports record 30. This is this year. 32.7 billion in revenue. Billion.
B with a billion with a B.
Where's the money coming from? Where's it coming
It's
from? It's
unfortunately it's
coming
you and
from our
me.
pockets in the
Yep,
401ks and
that's
other
right.
places like that.
I
So,
mean, not only does it need to go in there and be, managed like you were talking about, like these life cycle funds, I think that's the biggest scam that's ever been invented. How do you
absolutely.
if you understand that that's a big scam, like where does it go? You got to become a financial professional if you're going to manage them on your own or pay somebody to do it. And now you've got fees that are coming off on top of that. So I mean, it's such an interesting game that so many people just, I don't want to say set on cruise control, but there's a lot of control and a lot of access that folks are just so willing to give up that I don't know. They got to think there's a better way.
Well, if you're with financial planning products like this, you're putting 10, 15, even 20, 25%, whatever you're going to do into these instruments
Yep.
to try to, plan for your retirement. Yet what are we doing? We're ignoring the other 75 or 85% of our money. And that's what Nelson Nash always talked about with infinite banking is
Yep.
look, it's not about the rate of return. It's about the access to the capital
Yep.
while we're living. We need money when we're living, not when we're dead.
Yep.
And so we're putting all this money into the 401k and we're locking it up in jail with a partnership plan with the IRS for what? 10, 20, 30 years. And we lose what? What do we
Yeah.
lose when we do that, Jared?
Control.
Control. And what about opportunity cost on the
Right.
other 85%?
Yep. Yep.
Eh, So we talk about. Let's skip through. I'll bring up the PowerPoint and would you like to walk through that and
Sure.
see?
I think that's a great
Okay,
idea. Yep.
okay. Let's pull this up and let's take a look. This is our what podcast 11?
Number 11. Plugging
Yeah.
along.
All right. And we want to talk about what?
401k, the 401k trap.
Yeah, the fallacy and what you may consider. This was
This is my favorite picture. I don't know how small that text is. I'm just going to read it. It says, fortunately, we were able to pick up the negative indicators early and extract our brokerage fees before your share of portfolio hit the fan. Before,
isn't that true?
that's too funny.
So, well, it's funny. People don't look at all the different things that affect our money, right? They just look at rates of return and how am I doing. But
Yep.
this is a big one, especially today, the US dollar index against foreign currencies, because so much of what we, buy comes from other countries. And so this is just a basket of currencies against the US dollar. That's all this is showing. And you can see down there in the yellow, Jared, that the US dollar has lost 9.5% of its purchasing power in 2025 alone.
Wow, that's just year to
That
date. Wow.
yeah, that's
Sure.
not inflation. That's not fees. That's not market risk. None of that. That is just the dollar. So after everything, you gotta add this on top of it.
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible.
Mm.
There's the official inflation rates of return. What do you think?
Yikes. I mean, I see 7 and 6.5 in there in the middle. I know those occurred, but then I think the big buzz now is, it's in the low twos and they say that, but it compounded. Like just because it's at two now,
Yeah.
I feel like it's at 25 to 30 from where it was just a short couple of years ago. It's brutal going to the store and buying different things. And I don't even know what all goes into those factors. I don't know how they come up with these inflation rates.
No. Well, we'll get into that in a second, right?
Yep,
All
sure.
right. So here's some of the things. Items not calculated in the CPI, right? I'll cover the first part and you cover the second, right?
Sure.
Housing, rent, mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs. Transportation, your vehicle, fuel, maintenance, insurance, public transportation costs, food, groceries. And
Hmm.
groceries, by the way, are skewed by selection bias.
What
What
does
they
that
don't
mean?
tell, well, selection, great question, Jared. Selection bias is, hey, I eat steak for dinner on Friday nights. Well, steak's gotten too expensive. I'm going to go buy hamburger or I'm going to go buy chicken because it's cheaper. And so what this does is it says, well, people are not going to spend that money on the steak. They're going to go buy hamburger, and so we're just going to use the price of hamburger. That is not a fair comparison. Steak
Wow.
to hamburger, or
Sure.
steak to chicken, or steak
Yep.
to pork, or whatever it is, or eating out. And note on the top that the items in red are not calculated in the CPI.
Sure. Sure.
So all these things have gone up tremendously. What's your homeowner's insurance, your property insurance? These things have gone through uh, tremendous increases.
Yeah.
I'll let you cover the rest.
I mean, I'm just seeing the insurance piece down there. I know our insurance has gone through the roof for both health, car, home. I mean, literally everything, whether it's an uninsured motorist coverage that I'm required to have in case
Yes,
somebody that doesn't get insurance hits me.
yes,
I mean, that one is
yes.
just as a little bit more libertarian thinker type of guy, that one blows my mind and so infuriates me. But I know everything in terms of insurance has gone up on that side. The medical, same side. I mean, we've talked a little bit about where the medical world has been for me for the last year. I know we've spent a
Yeah.
Midas fortune on healthcare over the last year and a half, and then throw into that some of the debt payments, how that's not included. I mean, I had no idea before you showed me this slide a couple of days ago that these were not included in the CPI. It's like how can you not include that? That doesn't make sense to me.
No, it truly is. But they want a result. How are we going to get to the result? Because remember, if the CPI goes up, what else goes up? Because the debt, the servicing the debt on the U.S. deficit goes up, which costs billions upon billions of dollars, every month more.
Sure,
If they have to raise the rate, so they
all
want to keep
connected.
that artificially low,
Yeah, all connected.
right? Here's talk to the preaching to the choir here, but healthcare
Yeah.
deductibles keep
Yep.
rising.
Yep.
There's a history right there.
Yep.
Every year they're marking higher,
I know that one.
right? How about this one? What do you think about education?
We were very fortunate to have caught IBC early on when the girls were young to be able to move some stuff over and to prepare for that. This one really hits close to home for us just by how we were been able to change the way we're saving. I think this is a huge blind spot. The costs are going through the roof. Not
Yeah,
only are the costs through the roof, but we've talked in some previous podcasts. What happens when you get there if they don't go to school? Like the trade schools are taking off, which is great. I
yeah,
love
I
that.
know. Isn't
I
that
think there's
something?
a huge asset that
Mike
can
Rowe,
be.
woohoo!
That's right. Mike Rowe really winning the day on that one. There's a huge asset to be had there. But what happens if you save all this money and they don't go to school? So I mean, there's a whole other topic that can go down that path. And yet we talk about the difference here between the public and private costs. I mean, crazy to see how the increases have happened.
Yeah, no, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. This isn't 2.7% as they represent that inflation is, modest. No, it's crazy.
Yeah,
People
that's way more than
experience it.
2.7.
Yeah, we'll cruise ahead and we'll see a couple of illustrations just to prove the point.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Does this look like 2.7% inflation? You check out eggs, coffee, bread, milk. I
Yeah.
mean, these are not 5 and 10% markers. Look at the left on that scale, Jared.
Yep. Crazy.
50%,
250%
100%.
for eggs.
Yes, geez.
Crazy.
I mean, that's a staple for just about everybody.
Yep.
Rocky, crack a couple of, I'm dating myself, but crack a couple of eggs and you drink the raw eggs. Well, shoot, it's been $7 getting ready for your run.
Sure. Sure.
Well, this was an interesting chart. I had to do this for a client who didn't believe it. So I said, tell you what, I'm going to do a spreadsheet to prove this to you. And essentially all it is it's take a qualified plan and a non-qualified plan. And it's a little busy, I'm sorry, but this is what it is. You're going to put in, $12,000 a year, or 12,000, yeah, a year into a savings plan, right? And
Yep.
so your pre-tax, you got 112 because you're doing a dumping. So you got $112,000 pre-tax in there into this thing, right? The total invested was $220,000. This is a typical qualified plan, IRA, 401k, any of them.
So the
And then
idea here would be maybe you came from a different company, you rolled over 100,000, you were able to keep those funds moving in because it was like kinds basically. And so you move in the 100,000 and you're going to give 12,000 over the course of 10 years.
yeah,
Is that right? So
so
220,000 went in.
yeah, so you got a total invested 220,000
Yep.
versus if you didn't have a qualified plan and you had to pay those taxes along the way, it would look something like the right column. All right. So you're paying your taxes as you go. And we just use an apples for
Not
apples
and not
comparison
the
of
right column, but the bottom. So the taxes first is down on the bottom.
right.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
So sorry. So essentially what we're trying to illustrate here is, and can you see the 463 on the bottom of yours?
Yep. Yep. I
Yeah,
can see
okay,
the
because I can't on mine.
463
It's a
and
little
I can see that you've used the exact same rate of return through both scenarios.
okay. And that's all I did. So on the spreadsheet, which is active, and I can't do it here, but you could change any one of these rates of return. Doesn't matter. If you change 9% here, it changes, the 9% here. So
Yep.
if you make this 3%, this becomes 3%. And the corresponding changes means that these numbers, net of taxes, would be identical to the penny. There's no difference. So long as you use the same tax rate. And
Yep.
that's the illustration here. It's called
Sure.
the commutative property of multiplication. You're going to wind up with the same number. So all of this preparation and angst we have over picking our investments and our 401k boils down to this. We believe we're going to pay a lower rate of taxation when we take the money out than when we're putting it in. And how about all those people who are you're paying 12% right now, they're making, I'm sorry, their taxes are at effective rates of perhaps 12% and they're dumping it into this stuff. You mean
Sure.
to tell me when 50 years down the road, 40, 30 years down the road, they're going to be paying 12% in taxes? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But
I
anyway,
mean, this kind of builds off of the previous slides, right? We can kind of see where this is going in terms of, you know, the value of the dollar, the inflation piece, all these different factors that are they're moving necessarily in the wrong direction.
yeah,
And yet we're going to assume that 10, 20, 30 years from now that we're going to be at a lower tax bracket. That's a big assumption to make and a pretty risky one as well in terms of what you're doing and locking up these funds and moving them. You're locking up and throwing away the key, less a $50,000 loan if you really, really need it. Like if you've got $3 million sitting in there, you can only touch 50,000 of it of a loan. And if you
exactly.
borrow that, you don't get to touch it again until you paid the whole thing back.
Yep.
So it's amazing to me. You have all these large lump sums that are available, and you can't touch them. You've locked them up, throw away the key.
No, it's at the discretion of the administrator, and they're driven by the law, of course, but it's not a great place for us to be. It's just
So maybe to kind of recap this chart here to make sure I'm understanding it right. You're basically what you're saying is it doesn't matter whether you pay tax now or pay tax later. you're paying the same effective tax rate. You can look at all the different returns. The only way you truly win in this system is by having a lower tax rate
That's right.
20, 30 years from now. If you're able to reduce your tax rate in retirement, and that's whether you're spending less or whether the bracket is lower, whatever that is, that's truly the only way to win on this one in
That's
terms of
right.
the scenario.
You're 100% correct.
Okay.
100% correct. Rolling, I'll roll forward. I know that one's busy. This
Sure.
is a guy who's 40-year-old, same thing. He puts 2 grand a month in a tax-free investment for 25 years, and these are his effective rates of return. We just did this to compare apples to apples, Jared, right?
Sure, sure.
40 years old, retired at 65. He's got nothing in this thing when he starts, and he's putting in $24,000 a year at a rate of return of 4%, which is basically a low risk government bond portfolio, just to
Sure.
compare it, right?
Yeah. If
Yeah,
you, I
you
mean,
could
if
do
you
better,
wanted to
but
include an index fund, you're probably in the mid sixes. I,
yeah,
I think, I think it would be fair to say that if at this point you're truly only looking at rate of return, Nelson would tell you you're not looking at the problem. If you
bingo.
don't see the problem, you can't see the solution, is what Nelson would say, right?
Amen.
Yeah. So
Amen.
I
Oh,
don't say that to gloss past the rate of return too much, yet it's not truly the issue. It's the issue of, are you in control of your capital? Did you build a warehouse of wealth that you have control over?
precisely,
Yeah.
precisely. So take that same $2,000, Jared, same guy, 25 years, throw it into this is just an illustration we pulled so people could kind of get a feel for what would that look like.
Yep.
So in the one case, you're getting, after net of taxes, we just said was X number of dollars, 700,000 and change or whatever it was. Take
Sure.
a look at this one. And why don't you explain this one to people? What does this mean?
So the top row, you can see the starting point, right? They've got an initial yearly premium of 23,902. And then at the end of that year, when they've paid the second year premium of the 23,902 again, that's when the dividend calculates for the end of year one.
Right.
So you're looking at this to say that based on what's been given and an approximate guess on what the dividends may be, again, these are non-guaranteed, but this is, using some of the history that's built up, they're saying that you've got an approximate cash value of just short of $17,000. In terms of the death benefit, a little over 1 million. This is kind of, how these policies are structured. Is that what you were asking on? Talk about just that first line of where that goes?
Yeah, yeah. So say you need 10 grand. Can you pull 10 grand out of this thing after you funded it that first year?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
And
can
what if
tell you if your number you're needing is 10 grand, you could pull that within 2 weeks of starting the account because you're going to have a guaranteed cash value of 14,392.
okay,
So with that, if you're looking for 10, 2 weeks later after you've started this account, you could loan the 10. So I guess to build on that even a little further, we want to remind you that you're borrowing from the general ledger of the insurance funds, right? You're borrowing from their general ledger. They're leveraging the cash value that you have as equity on the death benefit. Now this starts off real small, real slow. This is a long-term game. This is not the get rich quick scheme. This is not this is not a trick. You've got to think like a forester would think, as Nelson would say. You got to look down the road. When he's building a plot, of 100 acres and he's dropping 500 trees, 40 years later, he may take 80 trees from that plot. He knows he's not going to get everything he put into it, right? And that doesn't mean you can't get access to this right away. It just means you gotta look down range a little bit to know what's up ahead. But to
let
do
me ask
that,
you
you got to see the problem.
let me ask you a question on this, Jared. So
Sure.
let you take that $10,000 and say the loan rate is 5%, just for the sake of argument. That's
Sure.
probably pretty close. You pay a 5% loan rate, and you decide that for whatever reason that you don't want to pay it back. Do you have to pay it back right away?
Nope.
You don't. What if this was money inside of a 401k and you took that 10,000? What are the taxable consequences of doing that?
Of not paying it back.
No, just taking it out. What does that mean? So the money going into the 401k has not been taxed yet, right? But
That's
when
right.
you take it out, you've got usually the law says you have to pay it back within 5 years, but some airlines say 4 years, so
Yep.
48 months. So they're going to put you on a payback schedule of 48 months. They're going to pull it out of your paycheck. This is an airline thing, but other
Sure.
companies I'm sure do the same thing.
Yep.
So what money goes into the repayment plan into your contract? Is that taxed or not taxed money?
To repay the funds
The loan.
for the loan on the policy loan.
No, this I'm talking about a 401k now where you borrow
Oh, I
money
got
again.
you.
I'm drawing a
They're
comparison.
gonna send you a bill. They're gonna send you a bill that you have a exact payment schedule of which if you don't make that payment schedule, they're gonna start withdrawing from your paycheck.
Right, but when you start paying it back, are those taxed monies that you're paying it back with or untaxed monies?
I'm back. You've got tax money that's paying that back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So now you're paying this thing back. Now you haven't paid taxes on it initially. Okay, so fine. You're going to get tax going back in. And then this money is put back into place. And then the day comes when you're going to take that money out, you're taxed again. So
yeah,
you're double taxed.
that's interesting.
You
I
do
never heard it
not,
described that way.
yeah, it's
Yep,
double taxation. You
yep,
don't have that with a IBC structured plan. You don't.
sure,
You can borrow 10,000 out of this thing, put it back. You can, and for that matter, let's say you only put 5,000 back. You still have a $5,000 note outstanding. Could you go borrow another 5,000?
sure could.
Sure, you could. Could
Yep,
you do it with a 401k? Some airlines, no. They want you to repay the whole, and this isn't just airlines, it's other companies too,
yep,
but they want you to pay the whole thing back before you can take the second loan out.
that's
And you're
right.
going to be double taxed.
That's
It's
right.
it's it's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yep.
Anyway, so I'm sorry to
So
steal your thunder here,
I
but
know we digressed a little bit there, but we were talking in the previous
oh,
example of how much funds would have be there. Again, this was a very modest assumption on if you were to do $24,000 a year or $2,000 a month, you would have a little over $1 million in the other amount, correct? In terms of the 401k style account. Am I saying that right?
well, we're going to go back to here.
Yeah, that
You'd
one
have a
there.
little over a million. Yep.
Little over a million.
But
There's a
that's
couple
that's
of
pre-tax. That's pre-tax.
pre-tax. That's pre-tax. Yep. So there's a little over a million sitting there, and there are some fee structure that are at the top. You know, not knowing what the load on the funds are. You know, you can say that if you've got a 1% load, which is high, that's not a lot of the funds in a lot of the ones that you can use. But if you were to average out a 1% load, you're going to have a pretty good little bit off the top. Maybe that's your financial advisor. Maybe that's the mutual fund. Maybe that's there you go. There's the
It's
account.
not just the load on the funds, though. That's the whole
That's
point.
right.
There's
That's
a
right.
heck of a lot more on that than just the load that they're
Six
showing you.
pages of fees.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be another topic to
You're
discuss
probably at
because that
2%.
yeah, it's crazy to think when you start peeling back the layers.
It's
So anyways,
ugly.
so we were saying even if you were to just assume zero, if you were to assume no loads, nobody ever made any money off of your account over the course of 25 years, little over $1 million there, and then that's pre-tax,
Yep.
so that's tax deferred. And if you do the same amount into an IBC style contract, again, there's a little bit that falls off there in the middle. You see on the left side, it does fall from 24-ish to down to 23-ish. But we're saying even though there's a little less that's going into that, you're still hitting almost the same amount in a net cash value, just short of $1 million. But that that is all post-tax money, as if
Yeah.
to say if you start to dip into that, if you dip into it as a loan, there is no tax. And if you dip into it as a withdrawal, you've got the option up to cost basis for no
Yes.
tax as well.
Yes.
So those aren't really apples to apples, right? Because you got $1 million that are sitting there that we made the assumption earlier of a 30% bracket. So right off the top, I know I'm not taking that $1 million as a lump sum, but there's really only 700,000 there after tax because you've got to pay tax on the on the 401k money.
And that's in today's tax structure. What are we going to have
Sure.
tomorrow? We don't
Right.
even know.
Right. Yep.
We don't even know. It's remarkable, right? So I mean, this just talks about the effects of fees, right?
Sure.
1, 2, 3% fees. Oh my gosh, it really adds up. Now this is over a
Does.
30-year period. You
Sure.
pick your period and you can check it out. But the point is, fees matter a lot, and you're
Yep.
not you're not getting killed with these things inside of a life insurance contract.
And they didn't
This
make thirty-two
chart,
and a half billion dollars off
I,
of
I know.
no fees.
So people are saying, okay, I'll be in a lower tax bracket. This, I know it only goes to 2020, but this is a history. Look at the average maximum tax rate and the average minimum tax rate. All right, so people that are paying zero now, effectively, the bottom 50% of the taxpayers
Yep.
are essentially at zero. But the average is at 57%, and the top end was over 90%. I remember this stuff. Remember my dad talking about this.
Mm.
But look, if they even began to move this scale up, what is that going to do to all that savings you think you're getting inside of a qualified plan, inside of a 401k? The whole reason you're doing this and giving up all that freedom, access, and control of your money is for this. And honestly, I don't know about you, Jared, but I'm not so certain that these tax rates are going to hold for one of two reasons. Maybe they won't raise the rate, but what are they going to do when they inflate the money supply? People have to make more money just to buy the same thing, so they got to earn a higher paycheck, so their paychecks go up. And what does that do? It
Yeah,
drives them into the next tax bracket.
sure.
So you're going to get there one way or the other.
I mean, it's easy for us to say this as, practitioners that have studied this and know this and are very familiar with it, but it's it's not such a hard concept to
I
grasp.
know.
Why would I turn over all of these control, all of the lack of ability to touch this money? Why do I turn all of that over knowing that I'm gambling for a lower tax rate? All of
That's what
those
you're
are
doing.
gambles. All of those are out of my control in a lot of cases, to the point that I can't truly control that. Why would I give up all of that control when there's another option that is given in a contract that is guaranteed? The dividends are not guaranteed. We're going to be the first ones to tell you that. And yet they've been paying dividends for the past 120 years plus. So we kind of bank on them providing that, and on the assumption that if they're not paying dividends, maybe our name's about to change to China. That's a bad joke. I'm just saying, like, that's not the idea there. But there's a lot other problems happening if these folks aren't paying their dividends. And yet, if you look at it through the lens of, I want to regain the control, I want to have access to those
Yeah.
funds. I mean, Nelson would have told you that your need or for finance while you're alive is greater than your need for a death benefit. I mean, that's pretty straightforward.
Amen.
If you
Yep.
can recapture
Absolutely
the
right.
banking function in your home for the same amount that you were contributing to your 401k, and you're going to create a passive income for yourself in your later years, that seems like a no-brainer.
Ah, so much so. So much so. I mean, you think about what you could use in your personal economic model to reduce your costs and increase your long-term savings. You drive down your interest costs.
Sure,
How
sure.
can you do this? Automobiles, financing an automobile through an IBC contract, and or putting a down payment on a house. If you got the money saved up, you could put 10 or 20% down on a house. Think about the savings there when the first at 7% rates on a
Spot
current
on.
mortgage today, 50 half $500,000 home. Gosh, you're looking at some 80% of that um, payment is going toward interest,
Yep.
right? Nelson
Yep.
says 34% of every dollar we spend goes toward interest. If you need a loan, if you're carrying a credit card, look at the number of people that are carrying credit card debt. They could get rid of that stuff, be disciplined, use their IBC contract, borrow the funds from there, get rid of that debt, and recapture that dividend interest for themselves.
That's spot on.
Interest income, I'm sorry, for
That's
themselves.
spot on. Yep.
And it's huge. But yet we're going to dump all this money into these accounts for 20, 30, 40 years in
Yep.
hopes for a 6 or 7% rate of return that we got to pay taxes on. We take it out.
Yep.
Come on.
I
It
know.
just, it makes no economic sense. And
Yep.
that's what I'm trying to hammer home. And you are trying to hammer home to
Yep.
people.
Yep.
It just, please look at this stuff. We're not selling you. We're trying to show you.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
it.
I mean, we become educators. That's really the end. That's the goal at the end of the day.
100%.
I'll throw out a teaser that I don't think we have the time to tackle today, but I think it would be a great starting point for our
You
next
do this.
podcast. The teaser is, and I got this asked by two close friends who have recently become IBC clients, that they're on board. They understand. They're ready to roll. They're so excited, but one of the questions that they asked, and it was a very common thread, was why they're like, I see this. This makes sense. I get this. Why aren't more people doing this? And it was almost like a fool me once, my problem, or your problem, fool me twice, my problem type of thing, right? Like they see the 401k fallacy, they see the ability to recapture this interest, to reclaim the banking function. They see all of these really amazing functions of these policies, and they go, this sounds too good to be true. Where's the catch? And I'm like, there is no catch. Yet there involves a little deeper discussion on that question. So I throw that out there as a teaser. If you're okay with that, that's what we'll start up the next one with.
Absolutely. No problems. I'm wide open to anything you could throw my way, Jared. We'll do it.
I love it.
Before we wrap it up, we were talking about people needing to make more and more money, right?
Yep.
So look where the big jump happens. Somebody is, if you're a married, well, even if you're a single guy, you're single, you're making 103 to 197,000 dollars, a fair, decent paycheck. But over the next 5 years, if you need to make 50% more just to cover your expenses, and you get that pay raise and it bumps you into the 32% tax bracket, you just had an 8% increase in your tax rate.
Wow.
So, I mean, look at these numbers. This is I look at these charts,
Yeah.
and they're very, very informative, and it tells you where the money is coming from. The middle class is paying the lion's share of the taxation in this country,
Sure.
and that
That's
middle
fair.
class is under great pressure right now. This is your escape hatch. This
Yep.
will show you a way out of this paradigm that they've put us in.
That's brilliant.
Anyway, but
Nope. That's perfect.
follow the money. That's the
Follow the money. I love it.
follow the money.
Fantastic. Well, we'll wrap it up for today. We'll meet again soon where we'll plug on with the next question and keep it rolling, hopefully with more videos to come.
Awesome, Jared. Thank you so much. Great talking with you. Great seeing you. And we'll
Always
look
a
forward to the
pleasure.
next one.
You got it. Talk to you soon, John.
Have a great night, Jared. Thank you.
Thanks.
We'd like to thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Creating Tailwinds podcast with your hosts, John and Jared. As always, we welcome your questions and critiques. You can reach us through the Contact Us tab at flightpathfinancial.com. Remember, it's all about how you think. As Nelson Nash has said about infinite banking, give it your close attention, and it can make a radical improvement in your financial future.